Hi, this is Matt with AppliancePartsPros.com. In this video, we're going to show you how to troubleshoot the top 10 reasons why your washing machine is making noise. Stick around to the end of the video for an important washer safety tip that most people don't even know about. But before we begin, we're going to make sure the appliance is unplugged or the circuit breakers are off so there's no chance of electrocution.
Also make sure you turn off your hot and cold water supplies.
The most common reason your washer would be making noise is due to bad tub bearings. The tub bearings are mounted on the outer tub and support the drive shaft that passes through it. They allow the shaft to rotate as the washer goes through the cycles. There are two different styles of bearings: a sleeve style bearing found only in top load washers, and a roller style bearing found in all front load washers and some top loaders. On top load washers, the bearing is located at the bottom of the outer tub, and on front loaders, the bearings are mounted on the rear of the outer tub. All bearings can fail due to age, or if the tub seal is leaking and water is getting into them, it can shorten their lives. If the bearings are starting to fail, you'll get a squeaking noise, and then as they continue to fail, the noise will get worse. Usually the noise is loudest during the spin cycle. To check if a roller style bearing has failed, you can turn the inner tub manually and listen for any noise, or feel if the bearings aren't turning smoothly. For a sleeve style bearing, the only good way to figure out if it's bad is if it's making noise. So you'll have to determine if the noise is coming from the bottom center of the tub. Otherwise, you'll have to take the washer apart to access it. If your bearing has failed, you'll need to replace it, and it's also recommended that you change the tub seal at the same time. If you need to order a part, simply go to AppliancePartsPros.com and type in your model number. Find your part on the easy-to-read diagrams and match it to the number below. Click on the part if you want to see more pictures of the item or watch its repair video. You can also scroll down to see DIY stories from customers like you, or ask a question in the Q&A section. Once you're ready, you can add the part to your cart. It's that easy. Most orders will arrive within 2 business days. The next things to check if your washer is making noise are the suspension parts. They all work together to keep the washer in balance. The style of washing machine you have will determine the type of suspension parts in the washer. The most common are springs, shock absorbers, snubber rings or pads, suspension rods, and straps. If you have an older top loader, they usually have snubber pads or rings that the assembly rides on. They also have springs that hold the assembly to the bottom of the washer. If you have a newer top loader, they usually have suspension rods that support the tub. In addition, some have suspension straps that go between the tub and the washer cabinet. Front loaders use 2 suspension springs on top and shock absorbers on the bottom. If any of the parts are failing, you may hear noise coming from the affected part, or if something's completely failed, the washer may go out of balance and bang around during the cycles. Usually when a part fails, it needs to be replaced, but if it's just a spring that's squeaking because it's dry, you can simply add some grease to the contact point. If you have a front load washer, the next thing to check is the spider support arm. It's what holds the inner tub in place. The spider support arm usually has 3 arms that attach to the inner tub and a shaft that goes out to the drive pulley or motor. As the pulley or motor turns, it spins the arm in the tub to agitate the close. It's located between the inner and the outer tubs. If you think it's going bad, there are a few ways to check it. One of the first signs is that the washer is going out of balance during the spin cycle. If you spin the inner tub by hand, you might hear a clicking or rumbling noise as it goes around. That could be because parts of the spider support arm are broken and moving around inside. Pay attention to the gap between the inner and outer tubs as you spin it. They should always stay the same distance apart. If you notice it's wobbling as you turn it, one of the arms could be broken. Also make sure to check inside the door seal at the bottom. If you see any damage to the outer tub, it could be a sign that the spider arm is broken and the inner tub is bouncing around. If you determine that the spider support arm is damaged, you'll need to replace it. Now we need to check the coupler. It's what connects the motor to the transmission on older direct drive top load washers. The coupler is made up of 3 pieces, usually 2 plastic and 1 rubber, that work together so the motor can spin the transmission. One side of the coupler is mounted on the transmission and another is mounted on the motor. The rubber part goes in between to absorb shocks and vibrations. If the coupler has failed, you might hear the motor running, but the washer won't agitate or spin. You'll also hear a loud noise coming from that area as the broken coupler pieces grind together. That may also leave pieces of rubber or plastic on the ground underneath the washer. If that's the case, you'll have to replace it. Next is the drive belt. It connects the motor pulley to the drive pulley so the inner tub can agitate and spin. There are 2 different types of drive belts, V-belts and multi-groove belts. No matter what style you have, if it starts to fail and break apart, it may make noise as it goes through the pulleys. On front loaders, they're usually located at the back, and on top loaders, they're usually located on the bottom. Visually inspect the belt, and if it's damaged, you'll have to replace it. Now we need to check the drive pulley. It's opposite of the motor pulley and drives the washer. Most drive pulleys are made of metal, but some are made of plastic. The drive belt goes around it and connects it to the motor pulley. If the drive pulley is bent or damaged, or if the mounting hole is rounded out, it could be wobbling as it rotates and making noise. On front load washers, the drive pulley is usually mounted on the spider arm at the back of the machine, and on top loaders, it's mounted on the transmission at the bottom. Check the pulley for any signs of damage and replace it if needed. As always, guys, hit those like and subscribe buttons now to help support us making more of these videos. If you have a top load washer, the next thing to look at is the clutch. It gradually gets the washer tub up to full speed during the spin cycle. Clutches can come in a variety of different designs, but they all basically work the same. Inside, they have a brake pad-like material that grips and drives the washer. If that material wears out, the clutch may not work properly and you'll get a loud metal-on-metal noise. The clutch is usually found at the bottom of the machine. If you're hearing loud noises from it, it's likely that it's failed and you'll have to replace it. Now we need to look at the drain pump. It's used to remove the water from the tub during the drain and spin cycles. Depending upon your style, you may have a pump that simply has an inlet and an outlet. Others are more complex and have a motor attached to them. In general, drain pumps are mounted on the bottom of the washer, but sometimes can be mounted on the motor itself. If the pump is making noise, the first thing you want to do is check that there isn't something inside of it that's hitting the impeller as it turns. If there's nothing inside, it could be that the impeller or the bearings are damaged. Sometimes you can turn the pump and feel if it's binding up, which is an indication that the bearings have failed. To check the impeller, you need to look at it and see if any of the blades are damaged. If you have the style with a motor, and that's where the sounds are coming from, it's likely that the motor bearings have failed. In any of those cases, you'll need to replace the drain pump. Next, we're going to check the drive motor. It converts electrical energy into mechanical energy to drive the washer. There are many types of motors, but they all work the same. They all have a housing. Inside the housing is a rotor and a stator with a bearing at each end. The rotor spins inside the stator to drive the washer. This doesn't include the newer direct drive motors that have a flat rotor and stator. If the motor is making noise, it's usually because the bearings have gone bad. In most cases, you can't buy individual motor parts, so you have to replace the whole thing. The last thing to check is the water inlet valve. It controls the hot and cold water that enters the tub. Water inlet valves have solenoids that open and close to let water flow into the washer. If the washer is making noise during a fill cycle, the valve could be going bad. This could be caused by a damaged coil, jammed plunger, or a clog in the valve. Like the motor, parts aren't sold separately, so if any part of the valve has failed, you'll need to replace the whole thing. Now here's that safety tip we promised you earlier. Washing machine fill hose inspection is often overlooked by most people. If your fill hose bursts, it can cause severe water damage to your home. A fill hose can flood your home with up to 500 gallons of water per hour, so it's important to inspect them regularly. Make sure to check the entire hose for any signs of bulging or leaking. Also make sure the fittings aren't corroded. Then shut off the water and look at the washers and screens inside. If they're clogged, you can just clean them out, but if they're rusted or damaged, you'll need to replace them. When you reinstall them or put new ones on, make sure the hose fittings on each end are tight so you don't get any leaks. There are many different types of hoses. The most common ones are rubber or braided stainless steel. Rubber is the most common type of hose, but if you want extra burst protection because of where the washer is installed, it's recommended that you upgrade to the stainless steel type. Some of the newer systems even have an auto shut-off feature that shuts the water off if a leak or change in pressure is detected. Regardless of the hose type or the warranty it has, it's important to check them at least 1 to 2 times a year because they can fail at any time. Once you take care of the problem, you can plug the appliance in, turn the water back on, and take it for a spin. Thanks for joining us for another troubleshooting video brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons now, and if you have any questions or want to share how your repair went, leave a comment down below.